The Shir sponsor Lila Nishmas and Memi Baruch Alea Bas Chaim Tzvi. The second parak of Pirkei Avos begins with a statement from Rebbi, Rabbi Omer, Rebbi. Who exactly is that? And that is Yehuda Hanasi, who is most well known for compiling the Mishnah. And he was referred to as Rebbi or Rabbi simply as a title of respect, almost like the rabbi, the rabbi. He was the leading figure in terms of, certainly in his generation, was the Nasi, as we mentioned, a great Talmud Chacham, a tremendous scholar, also tremendously wealthy. The Gemara has many stories about how he was very rich, and he shared his wealth with people who needed it in times of famine and so on. And he had a relationship with the Roman Emperor Antoninus, understood by some to be Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, who was an intellectual kind of person. They had many discussions, and he gave him money. He gave Rebbi money. Rebbi was a very, very wealthy man, successful as the leader of the Jews, but came to the unbelievable conclusion that it became necessary to write down that which had been part of Torah Shebaal Peh for so many generations since the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. Many generations earlier, thousands of years earlier, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi felt it now had to be written down, and he compiled what we call the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, the 6 orders of the Mishnah. It's not exactly correct to say that he wrote the Mishnah, it means he compiled the Mishnah. And it's not something that took him a couple hours one Sunday afternoon. It was a major project involving others, and really that's a subject in its own right. But in any event, he was referred to as the rabbi, or for short, Rebbi or Rabbi, and that's what's identified in this Mishnah. In more modern times, for example, students of Rabbi Soloveitchik, from Yeshiva University, very often refer to him as the Rav. Again, a title of respect, the Rav. Many yeshivas, the head of the yeshiva is called the Rosh Yeshiva, right? The head of the yeshiva. In Eretz Yisrael, people refer to Harav, and they were talking about Rav Kook in many circles. So it's really a title of respect. In all of Klal Yisrael, they refer to Yehuda Nasi as Rebbi, and when we see his name mentioned as such in a Mishnah, such as here, that's the author of the opinion that's to follow. So the Mishnah says, Rebbi Omer, Ezo hiderech yishar she'avar lo ha'adam. What is a proper path? What's a righteous path for a person to follow? What should a person do in life? Kol shehi tiferes lo seah v'tiferes lo min ha'adam. Something which brings glory to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, glory to God, and also glory from other people. And it sounds like a very simple lesson, and it is a simple lesson in many ways, but it's also a profound lesson, because it teaches us that we are not only to be concerned with how HaKadosh Baruch Hu views our behavior and our activities. Obviously, we want to comply with the halachos of the Torah, with the dinim, with the different things that we're told that we have to do, but we see from here and many other sources as well that it's not sufficient, that it's not enough to be bringing glory, so to speak, to our HaKadosh Baruch Hu by observing the laws of the Torah, but also it has to be that we bring glory to other people, we find glory from, we get respect from other people. Now a person may ask a simple question, and they say, wait a second, what's the difference what other people think of me? Right? What's the difference if somebody else thinks that I'm doing something wrong or doing something right? Who cares? I know! And like people like to say, God is my witness, right? God knows that what I'm doing is right. What difference does it make what somebody else thinks? But we see that that's not the case. It does make a difference somebody else thinks. We have to bring glory to God, and we have to have glory from people, because that brings greater glory to our HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What do I mean? If somebody sees that a person is behaving in a certain way, which may be technically correct, but it's to give the impression that it's incorrect, it gives the impression that it is improper, so then a person is going to have a negative impression of you, and sometimes a negative impression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving such a commandment or for presenting such a set of laws. In other words, if somebody feels that I'm doing something in a certain way, and they see that I'm an observant Jew, and they see that I behave a certain way, even though it may be technically correct, but if it creates an impression that somebody thinks it's not technically correct, even if it is, then it gives a bad impression of me, and it leads people to mistaken conclusions. At the same time, when a person behaves in a way where he takes into account what other people are going to think, and the impression that he leaves on others, then it can be very, very positive. And so the Mishnah tells us, you have to have tiferes in both directions. It's not just that God should know that what I'm doing is right. I want to get the respect of other people as well. Again, not that I care so much for myself what other people think of me, that's something also, but in other words, what brings the greater glory to the act that I'm doing and to the way that I'm behaving, that way people should also think, this is the way that a person should behave, this is the way that a person should act. Then he mentioned another important instruction. He says, be as nizar, as careful, as precise, as exacting in a mitzvah kala, something which would seem to be a lightweight mitzvah, so to speak, as you are with a stringent mitzvah. Now, what does this mean? Well, the Rambam actually gives some examples. The Rambam says in an example of a mitzvah kala, a lighter mitzvah, he mentions speaking Hebrew, speaking in Lashon HaKodesh. You can speak in English too, you can speak in other languages, but there's an Indian to speak in Lashon HaKodesh, at least according to the Rambam, because this is the language in which the Torah was created, the world was created, and so on. Also, it's called Lashon Kodesh because it does not have any words for certain vulgar and base acts, and so on. So there is some mitzvah kala to know, to be able to speak B'Lashon HaKodesh. Is it the same mitzvah as putting on tefillin, the same mitzvah? Perhaps not. But the Mishnah tells us, be as stringent with those mitzvahs you are with others. You know why? She'ena tayod you don't really know the ultimate reward of any particular mitzvah. Who knows? There may be a mitzvah which you think, or I think,